Hello and welcome to the Cisco Support Community. Today we present a live Cisco Support Community Expert Series webcast event. During our event today, the topic will be integrating Cisco Cloud Web Security with Adaptive Security Appliance. My name is Francine Richards, and I'm the Web Marketing Project Manager for the Cisco Support Community. Our expert joining me today is Maite Cadenas, a Service Deployment Manager for the Cisco Cloud Web Security Solution for the EMEA region. Her work involves helping customers to implement the Cisco CWS solution in their environments, making sure that they have the support needed during the implementation, and as a first technical point of contact. Prior to this role, she was part of the Brussels security team, the Cisco TAC, that helps customers troubleshoot Cisco security technologies. She holds a master's degree in telecommunications engineering and a bachelor's degree in networking technologies. She also holds CCIE certification in security, 26075, as well as ITIL v3 foundations. Welcome. Now, joining our expert today is Jennifer Halem. Jennifer is also a Service Deployment Manager for the Cisco Cloud Web Security Solution for the Asia Pacific and U.S. regions, and the team lead. Her work involves implementing the solution within the customer's environment, managing the project, and an escalation point of contact for the technical account manager team. Prior to her current role, she was part of the Australia security team, the Technical Assistance Center, that helps customers configure and troubleshoot Cisco security technologies. She also served as a mentor to other Technical Assistance Center engineers. Jennifer is also a top contributor in the Cisco Support Community. She has worked in the networking security field for more than 11 years and holds CCIE certification in security 16480, as well as CCDP, CISSP, and ITIL v3 certifications. Also joining our experts today is Kirili Thanker. Kirili started with Cisco in August 2006 as a TAC engineer in the firewall team in RTP, where she supported security projects. Since May 6, 2013, she has taken up a new role as Technical Marketing Engineer. Enterprise Networking Group were responsible for security features on Cisco's iOS products. She has presented at Cisco Live 2013 and presented at Cisco Live San Francisco 2014. She has also done quite a few live webcasts and Ask the Expert events for our forum. Prior to joining Cisco, Kirili worked for John Morrow Company in Ohio, where she was the network administrator in charge of the company's enterprise networking, covering 27 locations in the United States. She also was an adjunct professor at the University of Cincinnati, teaching undergraduate-level networking courses. She holds an engineering degree in electrical and electronics engineering, CCSP, and CCIE Security 35505 certifications. And finally, our third expert is Johnny Melville. Johnny is a content security technical marketing engineer at Cisco with expertise in cloud web security, formerly ScanSafe, and Johnny has vast experience in customer-facing disciplines and leading global high-tech organizations over the last 20 years. In the past, Johnny managed all training activities for ScanSafe within Cisco, including defining, creating, and implementing partner and customer training and certification programs, creating and providing all training content and tools for customers, partners, and Cisco employees worldwide, including e-learning, online, and on-demand content, and management of online certification exams. Johnny is also a central focal point for all expertise on Cloud Web Security's revolutionary reporting platform, Web Intelligence Reporting, providing in-depth product training and demos. Johnny also has rich experience in presenting breakout sessions and proctoring labs at Cisco Live events and representing Cisco at numerous other customer and partner events, trade shows, and exhibitions. Johnny holds a degree in sociology and psychology and a business MBA. Now, I'd like to briefly outline the format for today's Expert Series webcast. Maite will start with their presentation for the first 60 minutes of the program, and then we will dive into the live question submissions for the remainder of today's event. During our live presentation, you may submit questions to be answered by Maite and the team of Cisco technical experts using the Q&A box on the right-hand side of your console. The team of technical experts is well-versed in cloud web security, so please begin posting questions now to give them the best chance of answering them. And also, if you experience any technical issues, please post your questions in the chat. We'll be asking polling questions during the webcast, and we highly encourage you to participate by answering them. You may download a copy of today's PDF presentation using the link in the chat window. And now let's go ahead and get started with today's event. We're going to start it off with the polling question. Do you have Cisco CWS Cloud Web Security deployed in your environment? There's a couple of different options there. You can select the option that best suits you, and we'll take a moment to answer that. And this will give our experts an opportunity to tailor their presentation to your needs. So make sure to submit your questions as we will answer them a little later in the webcast. And now I would like to hand the mic over to Maite, who will start the presentation. Maite?
Thank you, Francine. So thank you, everyone, for taking the time to join in today our presentation about integrating Cloud Web Security with ASA. Our agenda for today, first of all, is going to be an introduction to Cloud Web Security, then the preparation you need to do for Cloud Web Security deployment on ASA. After that, how to deploy it, some verification commands, some best practices we want to share with you from our experience, and finally, a little demo. So from the introduction, the takeaway I would like you to have is what is Cloud Web Security, which value it brings for you, and which cloud connection methods do we have. So disruptions, the kind that materially impact operations, come in many shapes and forms these days. Just when we got uncontrolled web browsing under control, along came with web-based viruses. And they haven't gone away either. Then came time wasters like the game applications within social networking. If that wasn't bad enough, some of those social networking applications are now business critical for some part of user base, like for example marketing. But they also have become new vectors for risk to your brand and for data to leave your company, even unintentionally. Distracted users or inappropriate behavior can cause outages or operational disruptions too. A solid security posture has to be one that responds to new threats automatically, provides visibility and control over what users are doing and when, and does it in a way that doesn't become its own form of disruption to IT or the business itself. So coming to that, Cloud Web Security is a cloud-based premium service that offers you real-time scanning for HTTP and HTTPS web content. It has a global data center infrastructure to provide you a robust, fast, and scalable service. You have different ways to connect to it. Also, you can be centrally managed with granular web filtering policies, and you can have visibility and control of what your users have been doing, and you have close-time real reporting with cloud retention. All of that, the value that brings to you is a strong protection with a complete control from your portal, and also is an investment value since you have it in the cloud. So how do we send that traffic to the Cloud Web Security services? We have different connection methods. You can do it directly to the cloud with hosted paths or cloud authentication, or you can use attach-based. So for example, with Cisco devices, you can use ASA, ISR Generation 2, WSA connector, or any connect using the Web Security module. Or also, in case you don't have Cisco devices, you can also use a virtual WSA connector. So today, the presentation, we're going to focus on how to integrate Cloud Web Security using an ASA connector. So before doing that, which preparation do we need? First of all, understanding Cloud Web Security with ASA connector, then its characteristics and limitations, what do you need before starting the deployment, and which user granularity methods are available on ASA in case you use them. So user granularity is when you want to integrate your policies on the Cloud Web Security with the users you have already, for example, with Active Directory or others. Cloud Web Security is a transparent, on ASA, it's a transparent redirection to the cloud that you can use breaking out locally wherever you have an ASA without the need to black hole your traffic to the headquarters. So you can send directly your web traffic to the cloud to be inspected and just pass what is your internal traffic to the other branches. So let's understand what is the packet flow. We have a client which wants to connect to Cisco.com. Here in the packet flow, I would like to pay attention on the IPs, the source and destination. So first the client does the GET request to Cisco.com. The ASA, who has Cloud Web Security enabled, checks and sees that that traffic has to be sent to the Cloud Web Security proxy. What that would do, it will add the headers with username and user groups if you have enabled user granularity, and it will add itself as a source and destination the IP of the proxy on port 8080. When the traffic arrives to the proxy, it's going to be scanned. First of all, we're going to check, is the user allowed to visit the host at this time? If the answer is yes, ASA is going to check, does the host have a good reputation, so it doesn't represent a threat for you? If the answer is yes, it has a good reputation, then the Cloud Web Security proxy is going to send a request to the end host by removing the headers. It's going to receive the answer. It's going to scan that answer to make sure that the content doesn't have any threats. It's going to log in all the requests and response events so you can have a look later on the reporting. And then it's going to send back that answer to the ASA. The ASA will notice that the traffic was sent to Cloud Web Security, and then it just will do the changes it has to do and send the answer to the client. So as you see, the client has been totally transparent and aware of what has happened while the traffic has been protected by Cloud Web Security. So which characteristics do we have? So ASA connector feature is available as from version 9. It's a transparent deployment, as we mentioned. It's supported in single and multiple contexts for HTTP and HTTPS traffic. You can have user granularity with Active Directory via Identity Firewall feature. We will talk about it later more in detail. Also, it offers you automatically failover to secondary data centers. So in case that there is an issue with the proxy in the cloud, you always have a backup, and the ASA is able to detect that and failover. So that will be transparent to your users. They will not be affected and will still be protected. Also, you don't need to install any software or make any browser changes in your users. Just for those who are not familiar, the feature is called ScanSafe on ASA. And regarding licensing, you don't need a special license on ASA. You just need to make sure you're running K9 for encrypted purposes, and that's a free upgrade. And then you also need to purchase a Cloud Web Security licenses, which is per user or per bandwidth basis, and it's not tied to number of devices. So now that we know that, what do you need to start in the deployment? So you need access to the ScanCenter Portal for managing the service. You need to know which are your proxies. You need to be able to authenticate the traffic to the Cloud Web Security service. Otherwise, anyone that will know the proxy will be able to send. So we need to know it's an authenticated traffic. Also, and which portal it belongs. Also, you need to choose which traffic you want to send and decide if you want to use user granularity or not. So how you get the proxies? You need an account to be provisioned. And when an account is provisioned, you receive the primary and backup proxy, the URL ScanCenter Portal, so you know how to access it, and the username and password to access to it, and that will be your super user. So how you get an account provision? Either you place an order or you have the chance to request an evaluation to test the service. So how we authenticate the traffic? So in order to authenticate the traffic, each ASA who has Cloud Web Security enabled must have an authentication key. That authentication key is generated from the ScanCenter Portal. There are two kinds of keys, a company key or a group key. Both of them, you can use them to authenticate the traffic. However, the group key will offer you more granularity since you can have one key per group, and in a portal you can have several groups. So that provides you more granularity, as you see. But the company key is only one per portal. As a tip, I would like to let you know, in case you're not familiar already with that, when you create a key in the portal, you only will see it once. After that, it's generated, it only will be visible the last 4 characters. So it's a good practice to either send it to you by email or back it up somewhere. After that, you need to choose which traffic you want to send to Cloud Web Security, HTTP and HTTPS traffic, and also which traffic you don't want to send for any specific reason. For example, internal traffic, you don't need to send it, or VPN traffic, for example, your SSL, neither. You need to make sure it's whitelisted, especially because in the tower it's traffic encrypted, and we will not be inspecting, and also it may cause you some problems with that, so you need to make sure you whitelist it. And also any other traffic that you don't want to send for any specific reason. So user granularity, which authentication methods do we have on ASA? On ASA itself, we have 3. So let me start from the one more to the right. So we have the full username and group that you manually configure in ASA. It's transparent to the user, but all the users will use the same default username and group. Another option, which is a bit more granular, you can use the AAA rules defined under your ASA with your AAA server or local database. However, that's not transparent to the user. You will receive a pop-up. And then the ASA is only to get the username as a data. And then if you have configured a default group, then it's going to be the group it's going to define. And finally, you can use Identity Firewall feature, which is a feature enabled as from 8.4.2, available from 8.4.2 in ASA, which offers you integration with your Active Directory. It's transparent to the user, and the ASA is able to know the username and group. Those are specific for the ASA, but also as alternative, you have other authentication methods which are cookie-based, where the ASA is only going to redirect the traffic, and then the authentication is going to be done between the portal and other, either with your SAML server or your Active Directory. Also here for your reference, I want to add you the sizing guide. So when you have to use to configure the connector, you want to check how many users are supported depending on the platform you're using. Those were updated this year, and also you can find them on the website. Also, we would like to share with you which are the limitations of this connection method. Also, if you see some of those limitations are really not good for you, you can always go for a different method. But let's have a look at the limitations on ASA. It's supported only on rooted modes. Cloud Web Security on ASA does not support IP version 6. Also, Cloud Web Security is not supported with extended path ASA clustering on an ASA SM, which is the module on the Catalyst SK. In case you use whitelisting on ASA for bypassing traffic, currently supported either by IP, fully qualified domain name, or by user. For the regex at this moment is not supported, but we have an enhancement request for that. If you decide to use user granularity with identity firewall, there are some limitations due to the CDA. I will talk more in detail later what is CDA. What is happening is that one user can be mapped to a maximum of 8 different IPs only. So that means if myself, I'm logging from 8 different devices and with 8 different IPs, I will see all of them. But if I log in a 9th device, I only will be able to see 8 IPs. So one of them will not be passed to the ASA. Also, another limitation is that one IP cannot be mapped to more than one user. So that means, for example, if you're in a Citrix environment and you log into it with different usernames, since there is only one IP to go, you will only be able to match one of them, right? In order to overcome that, for example, if you use Citrix, you need to make sure you enable true IP for its user, which is a Citrix feature, and what it does, it enables a way that Citrix gives a different IP for its user. Also, if you want to use terminal access like RDP or VNC, we recommend you using explicit proxy instead of transparent proxy. So you will have to look at different methods rather than ASA or other transparent methods available. So now that we know that, let's see how to deploy Cloud Web Security on ASA. We will have a look at the configuration without user granularity, then how to whitelist traffic, how to add user granularity, in this case with identity firewall, considerations to have in mind in case you have a multiple context deployment, and also how to configure policies in the ScanCenter Portal. And now it comes our second polling question. So, do you find configuration ASA connector and CDA integration to be a complicated task? Please choose your answer and let us know. So, configure Cloud Web Security and ASA without user granularity. The first thing you need to make sure is that you're running version 9 and K license applied. And then you configure your Cloud Web Security settings, where you're going to define your servers, the proxies you have get, and the license. And here is the authentication key that you have generated in the portal. Just a reminder, if you use the fully qualified domain name, please remember to configure DNS server on the ASA to be able to resolve the name. Then once we have that, we need to configure the policy and apply it. So as you see in the diagram, we have our users on the inside interface, and we want to send all this traffic to the Cloud Web Security instead of directly to cisco.com so they can be protected. First of all, we define the access list. You have to define which traffic you want to match, one for HTTP and one for HTTPS, in case you want to enable both. In this case, we're going to send everything. After that, we're going to define the class maps, matching those access lists that we have defined before. Then, before defining the policy, you need to define the policy map, where you're going to specify which is going to be characteristic in that policy. In that case, we want to inspect ScanSafe, and the parameters that we give to it, we can provide, for example, a default group name. That's one of the authentication methods I was mentioning. That's optional. And then you specify which traffic you're going to send, and you define one for HTTP and one for HTTPS. After that, you define your policy, where you're going to put everything together to which traffic you're going to apply its policy map. And once this is done, you need to apply it in order to enable it, and that you do it with the service policy. And in this case, we're going to do it to interface insight. You could do it globally, but normally we recommend that unless you really need it with all, you only enable it where in those interfaces where you have users that you want to send and inspect. After that, we have enabled HTTP and HTTPS. However, for HTTPS inspection, there is an additional step to do. As you know, HTTPS traffic is encrypted. So how are we able to see which policies to match? What are the conditions? We need to be able to read what is in there, right? The ASA now, it's only acting as a redirection, so it's in the portal, in the Cloud Web Security Service, the one that has to take the decision. In order to do that, you need to enable HTTPS inspection. There are 3 steps you have to follow. You need to create a certificate in the portal. You need to import that certificate in the Trusted Root Certificate store of the users. And after that, in the portal, you need to configure the filter and policy for HTTPS inspection. That means which traffic you want to inspect. You may not want to inspect all your traffic. For example, we recommend that you exclude from inspection sensitive categories, like for example finance or health or the others that you see listed here. After that, let's have a look how you whitelist traffic. How can you bypass traffic that you don't really want to send to the service? So in the diagram, you can see that we don't want that the internal traffic is sent to the Cloud Web Security server, but rather it goes directly. For example, in our DMZ, we have a web server. And also, for example, we have Bob, which is a user that we don't want to send his traffic to Cloud Web Security. He's just checking which kind of, for example, which kind of security threats it offers some web that he's testing. To do that, what do? You do it, you remember the first access list you have defined. You just need to say which one you don't want to send. So for example, in the first one, let's take the HTTP. What you're doing is you're denying any traffic that is that as a destination has a DMZ network. As you see in the object group, you can see that we have defined the DMZ network. And also you can do it for full qualified domain name. For example, we don't want that if it's sent to the .fifa.com, it's sent to the Cloud Web Security. So that also we can say, just go directly. And then for Bob, what we have done is whitelist per source. So in this case, we say anything that comes from Bob, which is 10.10.10.10, we don't want to send it. So once we have that, let's see how we use user granularity. First of all, it's needed to understand identity firewall feature, then some steps to configure it, and then some additional options you need to have in mind. So as you see, if you want to use the identity firewall, we have 3 elements. Here we have the ASA, which needs to talk with your Active Directory domain controllers, where you have your users. And then we also have a third one, which is the Context Directory Agent, CDA. The reason of that is because the ASA, in order to provide the information of users and group, need to be able to know the mappings between IP username and that username which groups belongs. So let's see who does what. ASA, what it does is load the Active Directory groups from the active domain via LDAP protocol, and then it's receiving the IP user mappings from the CDA via Radius protocol. And also, in case there is any user who has authenticated via VPN or through proxy, also is reporting those mappings to the CDA, so the CDA will know them as well. Imagine that you have another ASA that is also connected to the same CDA, like this, the other ASA, we also know them. And then, of course, is the one in charge of applying the policies. Then we have the Active Directory domain controller. Its task is to authenticate the users. It generates a user logon security logs, when you have the IP and that has been assigned to that user. And also, it replies the ASA's LDAP query for user and group information. And finally, we have the CDA, the Context Directory Agent, that what it does is monitoring the active domain controller security logs. And basically, it's because those logs that are generating in the Active Directory is where he can find the mappings between IP and user. And then finally, push those mappings to the ASA via Radius protocol, and also he will also receive the mappings from the ASA, in case ASA learns from VPN or through proxy. So now that we understand what it does, let's see what we need to do to install it. So first of all, you install the Context Directory Agent. We recommend to use the latest version, which contains the latest bug fixes, which currently is version 1, patch 2, and it's available to be downloaded from Cisco.com. Then you need to make sure that the Active Directory meets all the requirements for successful connection with the CDA. please have a look at the CDA install guides. There it's explained what you need to do, all the steps you need to have. So in order the CDA can read those logs that it needs. And just remember that the goal is that CDA needs to get successful login information to get the user to IP mappings. Just in case you're wondering, for those that see that it's always mentioned aviation in documentation or as we will see later in the commands, the CDA is the replacement for this aviation, which was end of download since 31st July of last year. However, the task that it does is the same. Once you have that, you can go to the WE and the CDA, and you have at least to do two things. One, configure your Active Directory senders. So as you see in the left, we have a domain controller. And then you also need to configure which are going to be your identity consumer for the CDA. In that case, it's the ASA. So what you can do is to configure the ASA, which is the connection. And now here, the CDA acts as a radio server. So you're going to specify a shared secret that later on you will need to configure it on the ASA. As an option, you can also have a syslog server. Now let's see what you have to configure on the ASA. First of all, you need to configure who is your Active Directory, and you remember that we connect via LDAP, right? Which user you're going to connect and which part of the tree is going to look for the information. Then you need to configure how to connect to the CDA. Remember, it's via radios. It's going to be in aviation mode, and then you need to specify the key. That key is the key that we have configured on the CDA. And after that, we can configure what is the user identity feature. In that case, we need to define the domain. Remember that the domain must match with the NetBIOS name, so normally it's in capital letters. Otherwise, it will give you issues and it will not really be recognizing which are the groups. Also, you need to specify which is your CDA. And then at the end, in order to make sure that the ASA is able to monitor the groups, you need to define which groups are going to be monitored. Right? Unless you have been using identity firewall in access list or in a specific policy, the ASA will not know with specific groups to monitor. So you need those commands and tell the ASA for which groups it's going to look for. Now, all the additional options you may have in case you configure user granularity with identity firewall. You have the possibility to match the traffic to be sent to the Cloud Web Security based on users and group instead of only IP or FQN. And also you have the option to whitelist per user. Also as a tip, one of the things we have seen during the deployment, some of the customers come to us telling, you know what, I configure identity firewall, I get the user granularity working fine, I'm checking, and after 5 minutes, as you see, it's gone. I'm not reporting anymore my user or my groups. Why this is happening? And they haven't touched anything. It's because the ASA is doing a NetBIOS proof with the end client. And then if that fails, what it's going to do, the ASA, it's reporting to the CDA. It's not replying to me, and then the CDA is going to remove that mapping. With that, the ASA will not know anymore the username, and also the group, it will be deleted. So if you want to avoid that, you just need to make sure you enter those commands. So it's not doing this NetBIOS proof. Now some considerations in case you use multiple context deployment. So in the system context is where you define your Cloud Web Security proxies. Then also you define in which context you want to enable Cloud Web Security. You may not want to enable in all of them. And then by default, in each context where you enable Cloud Web Security, is heritating the authentication key that you have defined with the proxies. However, if you want to provide a unique authentication key, you also can do it. That's an option you have. Then you need to make sure in your admin context you have a route to reach the Cloud Web Security towers. Otherwise, the ASA will show like it didn't detect them. And then in the context running Cloud Web Security is where you're defining your policies and also the whitelisting to know what to bypass from sending to the service. Now let's see. Now that we are sending all the traffic to the cloud, we already defined which traffic we don't want to send, and we already defined the identity firewall for user granularity, how we integrate that with our portal. So we need to configure the policies in the ScanCenter. We may want, for example, block everyone for social networking except the marketing team. Right? So that's something we can do. So in the portal, Under Web Policy, you define the policy name, you define which action to take, block, allow, then to who you're going to apply it, and that is done by a group, to what traffic you're going to apply it, and that is done by defining a filter, and when you want to apply it, you may want only to apply it for your users during business hours, only during the weekdays, or during the weekends, or during lunchtime. You also can do that. And then, of course, remember to activate the rule. But let's have a look how you define the group. The group, when you're using ASA to redirect the traffic to Cloud Web Security, what you need to make sure is that that group is matching the whoami scan-safe-net.output, and we will talk more in detail about it later. And then that is what you need to define in your groups in the portal. The groups are configured under admin management, and in case of ASA, even if it's an LDAP group, you need to define it as a custom group. The reason of that is because the LDAP group is defined with is expecting a specific syntax like LDAP or WANT, which is not the one that is matching the whoami scan-safe.net, and that's why you need it to use as a custom group. It's just a matter of syntax. Then we need to configure the policies and for the filter to see which traffic to match. So that you select the conditions to match for the action you want to apply in the policies. If the policy is an action to block, you match which traffic you want to block. If the policy is an action to allow, you select the traffic you want to allow. And finally, for the policies, just to remind you that they apply from top to bottom for all the policies you have defined in the portal. So then you need to configure for more specific to less specific. So we arrive to our polling question number 3. So do you use CLI or ASDM to configure ASA connector? Please let us know. As you have seen, I've shown the CLI commands, but it's also possible to configure via ASDM. Then the verification commands. On the user browser, there are 2 commands that you need to remember. whoami.scansafe.net, so you will see first if the user is really using the service and which traffic and which characteristic is sending to it. The policy trace of scansafe.net. There is where you can check your policies, what is matching the URL you're testing. On ASA, we have those commands. At least for the Cloud Web Security service, you can see show a ScanSafe server, where you can check if the towers are up, and the ScanSafe statistics to see which traffic has been sent. And for identity firewall service, in case you use Granularity, we have a lot of them, but at least you need to know those 2. So show user identity ideation, you will see if there is really a connectivity between both of them, and then show identity user active list, you will see if the user you're working is active. But we can have a look later on in the demo. Just a tip, in case you see the towers are down and you want to test, don't test with just a ping command, because ISMP protocol is blocking the towers. If you want to do that, either from the ASA you use TCP ping on port 8080, or if you do it from your machine, you can use the telnet command. And now some best practices we would like to share with you. While deploying, it's a best practice to whitelist everyone except the test machine. So like this, you're not going to affect anyone else. And then if one is completed successfully, you can roll out the rest. That you can use it just by defining in the access list only that you want your test machine to be sent to the cloud. Other recommendations is to use the latest versions on ASA, 9.15 or 9.21. This is because it includes the latest bug fixes, including this one that you can see, which helps for a better performance. Also, in case you decide to use ASA CX and Cloud Web Security on the same ASA, just make sure that traffic to Cloud Web Security is whitelisted from be sent to the ASA CX. And the reason of that is because ASA CX is going to have precedence. And then last but not least, when you define CDPS inspection in your portal, just remember to exception scansafe.com. The reason of that is that you don't want to block yourself from access the portal, because in case there is an issue, you will not be able to access to it. Of course, if that happens, you can always call back or call us. And now let's have a look at the demo. Let's see it's working live. So here I'm sharing my desktop. First of all, I would like to make you familiar with the scenario we have. We have an ASA which has two two interfaces configured. We have our inside interface, and we have our outside interface. We have defined an Active Directory, which is 10.10.10.10. Then the CVA is 10.10.10.20, but it's not outside to the 10.48.48.150. And then I will be playing with the user administrator, which belongs to trainee.cloudwebsecurity domain. This icon represents Cloud Web Security in the clouds, and this icon represents any host that you may want to connect, like that .cisco.com, for example. And that icon here represents myself. So let's have a look. As we said, what information do we need? So we need access to ScanCenter. I also just want to show you that I have the CVA. We don't have any mappings. I will come back to it later. Okay. And we have an ASA. Just give me a second, please. It's not a good time to log out. Okay, so while we're connecting via CLI, let's connect to the machine. Here it's administrator. Here we have opened the SDM. We can see it's the same as this ASA. We can see we have version 9.15. Those are my interfaces. Then currently, if I check, it's not configured the service. And then let's see what is the output. So with the who am I, we can check that indeed that user is not connecting. So then, what do we need to configure? First, without user granularity. So we need a ScanCenter access, the proxies, here I have them. Then I need an authentication key, and then to define the policy, so what I want to send. So first of all, let's create that authentication key. So I'm going to access to my portal. Here, this is the access you have to the portal. Then in order to create an authentication key, it's under admin, under authentications. I'm going to use a group key. As you see, this is the company key with it's only one, and I only see the last 4 characters, and I don't have it right now at hand. So I'm just going to create a group key. So before being able to create a group key, I need to create the group. You can add a custom group. Once you have created, you go again under authentication. Now here, use when you can create the key. Let me copy paste that key. And also paste it here. And also I can send it to myself for later on for reference. And as you see here, it only appears the last 4 digits. Now, let's go ahead and configure Cloud Web Security. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to configure without user granularity. As you see, here I have, which are my proxies. The access list, I'm going to send any web traffic or HTTPS traffic. Then I have defined the class map. Then in this case, the policy map, which I like to use a default group in this case. And also this one is for HTTPS. The only difference between this one and this one is here. This one is HTTPS, HTTP. And then I change the default group name and, of course, the name of the policy map. Then I define the policy. I put everything together, and then I'm going to apply that policy on the inside interface. Since I'm using FQDN, I will need to use DNS. So let me do that first. now I'm going to use and copy so now if I do, I can see they are reachable, the towers. So let's see now if I go. As you see here we see the output of whoami.scansave.net, where we can see now that the user is able to pass traffic. As you see, I don't have any granularity. This was administrator, and what is showing is just my IP, to which company name I'm assigned. In that case, is the same as my portal name, which converter we're using, my external IP. These are the group names with the text it belongs. As you see, that group, I define it here, is the default one. And that group is the one defining on the portal. Since in the portal, I only define that one in the static group names, which is the groups that the text that you belong in the portal, it's the only one that is showing. And it gives other information like the IP. So now that we're able to pass traffic, let's have a look which policies we can apply. So I have a global rule. That global rule I block. Since I didn't select any group, it's going to apply to everyone. And then I define a filter, which is global block filter, and it's going to be applied anytime, and it's already active. Just let's have a look at the filter for your reference. So okay, go under management. I have created them previously. And here you can see, for example, I have selected some categories. For example, I just would like you right now pay attention. I have selected social networking. Okay, but for example, certain dungeon portals are not selected. With that rule, where I select that, what I'm saying is that every website which belongs to social networking or any other category that I have selected, it's going to be blocked. So let's have a look here. Let's go, for example, to facebook.com. And it's already telling me access denied. And it's saying it's access denied with the reason that it belongs to social networking. If I go, for example, to cisco.com, it's not blocked. But as you notice, here it's with HTTP. If I go here and I go to facebook.com with HTTPS, let's go it again. And it's waiting. So let's see, for example, if I go to Google, what is happening. And just think what you think is happening here. Google is automatically redirected to HTTPS in September, so I'm just going to trigger it. It may be a bit slow. As you see, we have Google here with HTTPS, and I'm able. However, in HTTPS Facebook, I'm not able to block. I don't see anything as a user. However, here, when it was HTTP, I was able to block it. Does anyone think what can be the reason of it? As we said before, we need to enable HTTPS inspection in the portal. I just want you first go in that, pay attention here. If we look at the certificates, here it is issued by Google. Okay, so now let's go ahead and enable the inspection. So it's the traffic we want to see. So we define the policy. As you see, I don't have it active. Let me activate it. And now let's have a look what I have in that policy. So in that policy, I gave a name. I selected the certificate, which I previously created. It's going to be affecting everyone, but I could do it only for a specific route. group, and then I'm going to say to what traffic. So in this case, let's have a look first where I created the certificates. This is the one I did, but you can create others, or you can edit them. And then in the filter, as you see, I have selected all the categories except the sensitive ones. Also, for example, social networking is one of them. Or search engine portals, which Google belongs to it, is also one of them. And also here, as I mentioned, I put as exception scansafe.com, so I want to avoid to block myself for accessing to the portal. You see, https scansafe.com. So when we do a change in the portal, there is always, you need to wait like 2-3 minutes after the change is applied. Let's have a look if it's already applied. If not, we will continue and come back to it later. Let's come back to it later. Then now imagine that we want to add user granularity. In that case, we want to enable what is identity firewall. Normally, I'm more a fan of CLI, but I must admit that there are some features that are easier to configure for an ASDM, and identity firewall is one of them. So let's do it from here. So this is under identity options. I must say that previously I have defined already which are the LDAP server and the radio server, the AD agent, so that when you do it, then you just need to add here your NetBIOS name, and I select my Active Directory, which I previously have configured. Here I say which is my default domain, then which CVA I'm going to use, which I'm going to test. But as you see, it's successful. And then the rest I'm just going to leave it, and I'm going to apply it. This is what I'm going to apply here. Let's have a look at the CVA. If you have a look now, let me just enter again. You may see that now I'm not able to enter to it. Does anyone think what might be the issue? So what is happening is that right now Cloud Web Security is inspecting an HTTPS traffic, or also HTTP, and I'm trying to access from the outside to the HTTP to my CDA. So I need to whitelist it. So let's do that. So basically this is what I'm gonna do. This is my CDA. I just put as an example how to do it by FQDN. You define the object, and that is what I want to have finally. So it's denying this, it's whitelisting by denying this traffic on the destination and permitting the rest. In order to be able that it has this order, the commands I need to enter are those below. So let's go for it. So now let's try again. And you see now it's working. So this is an example of traffic that you need to whitelist. And now I need to enter the right password. So if we go to CDA, what we have done is to add our Active Directory groups. Just let's have a look here. This is the IP. As you remember, I had 10.10.10. Sorry, yeah, 10.10.10. That's the username I created previously in my Active Directory, which is going to use to communicate, and the password it has. Then also we have defined the consumer. So in that case, we have done the ASA, which My ASA is 10.10.10.2, as we can see here, CDA 10.10.10.2. And since it's acting as a radio server, I define the shared secret between both of them. Now, if you go to register devices, you need to see that indeed I have the ASA register, so we're good here. And then in the mappings, since when I log into here, the ASA was able to get the mapping, and that is the information it will get. As you see, there is no information about the groups that belongs to administrator. It's only the domain, the IP, and the username. So let's go back. Let's see if Facebook, it's good now. As you see, it's blocked, so we are good here. Let's have a look at Google again. So now I'm going again to check the HTTPS inspection. Let's give it a bit of time. In the meantime, let's check now that I enable identity options. So let's have a look into it. Let's monitor. For example, this is also for monitoring from ASDM. It's also easier. So if you go here, identity feature, as you see, the AD agent is up, which is good. This is the domain. There are no groups. And it has as active administrator. So let's see what it shows from the Who Am I right now. As you see now, it's showing the name, also here. However, in the groups, it's not showing to which groups belongs, and as you see, it gets the default one. Does someone remember why? So indeed, we forgot to say which groups to monitor. So let's go back and configure them. So if you go here, here is where you need to add which ones to monitor. So you can find, this is a very useful one. In case you don't remember, it will show you here the ones that detects. And for example, I'm going to say to add that I want to monitor administrator, and also I want to monitor, for example, group 1. So now let's push that. As you see, it's monitor user. And now let's see in the Who Am I. It just needs to take a little bit of time. Let's give some time to query them. Let's monitor. Now that we don't see, let's go if it's here in the groups. Indeed it's there. So let's go again. And we can see it here. It changed. It doesn't show anymore the default group. It shows the one we have defined, and we have tell the ASA to monitor. However, it's still not showing anything under the static group names. So as a reminder, group names are the ones that it belongs to the user, it's detected, and static names are the ones that are defined in the portal. So let's go back at Google. As you see now that I enabled HTTPS inspection previously, now the certificate that is using is the one that I did in the portal. The reason why it's trusting it is because, as I mentioned in the steps of HTTPS inspection, I install it in the user's browser. So now let's have a look and see. Let's imagine that that user right now cannot access facebook.com, need HTTPS, but is administrator, so I want that has access to it. So what I need to go is to go to my portal. What I want to do is under web filtering, associate exception it from here. So in order to do that, I go to management. I need to create the group here. If I go to Active Directory, it will not allow me because it's expecting that syntax. However, if I go to the Who Am I, it's not the syntax it has. So basically, I just need to go and select it as a custom group. So let's see, administrator. I create it. Now I can go on the web filtering, the group, and I'm going to say for administrator, it's going to be an exception of that group. You have the option to everyone, to only specific groups, or to everyone except some groups. I'm going to save it. Now remember, we need to wait like 2-3 minutes until it takes precedence. And now this user, it will be able. So while we're waiting for that, you can see so for example, here is the commands that we were able to see from here. Also, if you want to check Cloud Web Security, you also can check it from here, where you see the proxies are reachable and the statistics of which it's doing. So let's see now if we give enough time and see if our user can go now to facebook.com. And now we are able to do it because we exception it from here. However, any other user will be blocked. That doesn't belong to that will be blocked. And here is the end of the demo. I hope you find it useful. So thank you very much for listening, and please submit your questions.
Okay, thank you, Maite. Great presentation. Also, I want to thank everyone for participating in the event polling, and it's time to answer some of the questions our viewers have submitted today. And if you can't stay with us for the Q&A, please be sure to click on the evaluation link provided in the chat to let us know how the session met your business needs and expectations. So now we'll get to some of the questions. There's one here that says, can you tunnel a device on the inside of a network via another device?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Can you tunnel a device on the inside of a network via another device?
That is a good question, and maybe it would be good if you can put it in the our Ask Expert events and maybe put an example so we maybe can have a look and give an answer on that.
Okay. Yes, they're going to be doing an Ask the Expert event on the Cisco Support Community for about 2 weeks after this session today. So whoever wrote that in, can you post it there, and they can elaborate on that, and post it with the sample as well, and they can get back to you on that. Here's number one. So what is the difference between implementing CCWS with ASA, ISR, G2, or WSA?
Okay, so the difference that we have, it's different kind of connectors. So the three of them, that's the same use, which is just redirecting the traffic to the cloud. The thing is, you have some specifics on each of them, right? For example, on the ASA, if you want to use user granularity, you need to use identity firewall if you want to use it with your LDAP. And in that case, you need to install the CDA. But that's something just specific on an ASA deployment. For example, if you use ISR, you don't need to install the CDA. ISR will do it via NTLM, and then you need to configure your IP admission. So those are just little specifics that depending what you want to do, you can do it. And for example, on ISR, also an option you can use bypassing whitelisted per regex, which currently ASA cannot do.
Thank you. And here's a question regarding IPv6. Are enhancements going on for IPv6 support in ASA cluster? Any date on that or any information on that?
Actually, I don't have the answer for that. So that might be maybe a question for our PM team.
Okay.
Maybe you can put it on the Ask the Expert, and then we will check if we can have an answer for that or not. Okay,
and we'll get back with you to the person who asked that during the Ask the Expert event. Here's a question on, can CWS handle HTTP and HTTPS traffic on non-standard ports?
There are some non-standard ports that can do. I just don't have them on top of my mind. So if anyone is interested to know the ports, please, I refer again to the Ask the Expert, and we can come back to you on the ports.
Okay. And we'll have a little bit of information later on where you can go for that Ask the Expert event. It will be in our knowledge sharing community under the Expert Corner, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in today's broadcast. We have a few applications working on port 8443, 8080, and 8081 ports. So for them, it's not possible to redirect to cloud. Is that correct?
You have those applications which are using the ports, which are also sent to the cloud. Indeed, either you need to whitelist them to be sent to the cloud, otherwise you may have some issues, or you can do some kind of translation on the ports, like some port redirection, and see if that will work for you. But if their applications are using those ports, I just bypass them from being sent to the cloud.
Thank you. And it's being said that the maximum amount of users with the ASA 505 are 25. Is this a recommended deployment, or CWS will know the model and automatically block user 26?
So regarding those numbers, it's not that the ASA is going to automatically block user 26. Those numbers has been made for during some testing that has been done, having in mind that there will be no performance issues when you have other features enabled, like VPN. But of course, it's also going to depend to your pattern of traffic, right? It's a reference for you. Cisco recommend to follow, but it's going to depend on which is your traffic pattern and also which are the other features you have on the ASA. It's mostly for performance reasons, not rather users being blocked.
Thank you. And we have a question here. Which other deployment of CWS exists?
Well, actually, we have several. You can have what we call transparent or explicit. So transparent means that the user doesn't have to do any change on the browser or anything. Like, for example, ASA is a transparent. Then you can also have an ISR, generation 2, which is also transparent, so the user doesn't have to do any change. You can use WSA, or, for example, for roaming users, we have as well AnyConnect, which normally is known for being the SSL VPN connector, but also there is a model called Web Security, and it's where you can enable for your roaming users to send the web traffic directly to the cloud. After that, we have what is the explicit, our explicit methods. That means that the user is going to point their browsers to which is the proxy, and with that, either you can point directly to the proxy in the cloud, then you're going to need pack files in case you want to do some kind of tuning, or you can install a connector, which is a software you're going to install in a server in your premises, and then you can point, your browser still are going to point to that proxy server in your services where you have installed the connector, and then the connector is the one that is going to point to the Cloud Web Security, and the connector is the one that is going to take care of getting the granularity. So basically we have different types of connectors, which are the ones that take care of getting the details that are going to be sent to Cloud Web Security. And then you need to choose between transparent or explicit, and between them, which one adapts better for you or the one that you have available.
Thank you. Excellent explanation on that. Here's a question on which protocols are sent to the cloud for inspection?
So to the cloud, you send HTTP or HTTPS traffic, which is going to check. Regarding the HTTPS traffic, since it goes encrypted, you need to be able to inspect it in order to apply the conditions. As we saw, if it doesn't do it, it may say it because it may do some check-ins in the tower by IP, which the IP is not encrypted, but then it will not be able to look further. Right, and then the user, it might not get that user is blocked or not, as we saw in the demo. But it depends on you which one you want to inspect and which one you want to send, right? Itself is for HTTP and CPS traffic.
Thank you. And here's one. We are a school district using Chromebooks. Can you filter Chromebook users with CWS and have user mapping, or will it be by IP only?
Well, it's an excellent question. Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with Chromebook and what it does. So I'm afraid I cannot give a specific answer for that. But again, if you're still interested, I may refer you to ask in the Ask the Expert events, and then maybe we can search more on that and then check to give you an answer. Okay.
Yes. So if you can post that to that event, then our technical experts can research that for you and get an answer for you. All right. Then also, I enabled HTTP's traffic to be sent to the CWS. However, the page appears blank. What can be the cause of that?
So most probably what is happening is that you have not installed the certificate in your browser. So if you do HTTPS traffic, you need to create the policy in the portal with that certificate, but also you need to install that certificate on the user's browser. So it's able to do the encryption. So most probably either it's not placed, the certificate on the user browsers, or if it's done, it's not placed in the proper place. So it has to be on the Trusted Root Certificate store. So just pay attention to that.
Thank you. If I only want to test the solution with few users, how do I avoid that other users' traffic is redirected to the CWS service?
So that's a very good question. And it also is one of the best practice we recommend when deploying, especially in the initial phase when we're just getting familiar with the service or you're doing some testing. So the idea is to whitelist everyone, so bypass everyone from being sent, except your testing machines. And to do that, you do it with the access list, with the traffic you're matching. And you need to do the access list, you give it the name, and then you do it per source, right? So let's say user A, which is 10.10.10. So I want to say the IP 10.10.10 to any on port, either HTTP or HTTPS, and then it's the only one that is going to be matching. So you just need to make sure you bypass it that way.
And here's a question on CDA. Is CDA the only option to attain user granularity with ASA connector?
It's not the only option. However, if you want integration with your Active Directory using what it offers, the ASA Authentication, yes, you need CDA for the identity firewall feature. However, other options you may have is you can use your default user group and default name, and that it will give you just the granularity per ASA. Another option that I didn't, or you can use by the AAA rules, but then you will only pass the users, right? But then if you just want to do, let's say, per groups, in case you don't have those groups, one of the things it was not in the presentation is if you have subnetting and you have assigned each subnet to a different department, for example, let's say marketing is 10.10.10/0/24, management is 20.20.20/24, and users is, let's say, 30.30.30/24. What you can do is to create custom groups, and then in those custom groups, just specify the IP by subnetting, right? So you associate, for example, marketing to that 10.10.10/24. And then when we are sending that traffic, it will detect it belongs to that. And then you can apply those custom groups to your policies.
Okay. And here's a question on licensing. How does one order the CWS? Do I need to ask for a special license?
So on the ASA itself, you don't need a special license. You just need to make sure it has K9 and the free upgrades, and that's because it needs to be able to encrypt the headers for the cloud security headers. But then for CWS, you just need to order CWS, and it can be done per user or per bandwidth basis. But that's not tied to specific device. So for example, you can order to have 1,000 users, which you decide today all my users are based in US through one ASA, and those 1,000 users go to this one ASA. But tomorrow, half of those users is going to work from a different office. So you may have like 2 ASAs now and 500 users behind each one. If that's the case, you don't need to add anything else, right? Because you already bought the 1,000 users.
Okay. And what is the difference between the AD agent and CDA?
That's a good question, because when you read the configuration guide for ASA, it's always referring to AD agent. So AD agent, let's say, it's like the father of CDA. So it was the first software that was doing the mappings between IP and user and was reading from the Active Directory. However, it's end of software download right now, and the piece of software that it replaced AD agent is CDA. But both of them, the purpose of both of them is the same.
And in case I have an issue with CWS, how can I know if the issue is the ASA or in the cloud?
That's a very good question. So if you want to know if the issue is with the ASA or it's with the cloud, my recommendation will be that you put in your browser as a user directly the proxy. You make sure that in your firewall you have access to that proxy, so you open port 8080 and you don't have, for example, corporate security enabled. And with that, you're able to connect, and you do the who am I, the ScanSafe.net, and you see that you're able to connect to the cloud, to the service directly. Then the issue is going to be on the ASA.
Great. And we had a question here. I think you addressed this earlier, but for some of the people joining us a little bit later, there was a question here on, is CDA free?
Is CDA free? Yes. It's CDA. It's available from Cisco.com. You can download it. It's normally in the place where you download ASA software, so you can download it for free there.
Great. Okay, and I have time for one more question. Which ASA version is CWS supported?
It's supported as from version 9, so it's a feature that it's available as from version 9. So it's 9 or above, so 9.1 or 9.2. Even though our recommendations, unless you're using a specific version for a specific reason, would be to go to the latest, 9.1.5 or 9.2.1. The reason of that is because it contains the latest bug fixes, and also one of the bugs we mentioned or enhancement request, it's going to allow you to have a better performance as well.
Thank you very much, and that's going to conclude our questions for right now. We referenced the Ask the Expert event in our Q&A session, so Maite and Jennifer are also going to host this, and it's going to last through July 3rd. So if you didn't get some of your questions answered during this event, or it took a more detailed explanation than what we had time to address today, be sure to go to this area and post that question, and they can get an answer for you. If you have additional questions, log on to that Cisco Support Community Expert Corner, and that's the knowledge sharing section area of that. And the link is provided in your chat window. Now we're going to have a little trivia question. What does a fast-talking auctioneer and Cisco Cloud Web Security share in common? So go ahead and pick from those three options, and we'll answer that a little bit later, and we'll reveal the correct answer, see if you can get that. We have several upcoming webcasts. We're going to post the links to register in the chat window for each webcast as we address them here. So the first one is going to be in Japanese, and it's internals of Cisco iOS XE routers. It will be held on Tuesday, July 1st, and that's 10 a.m. in Tokyo time. You can register for the live webcast at the link provided in the chat window. Next one's going to be in Portuguese, and that is on Cisco OSPF, Open Shortest Path First Troubleshooting. And this webcast will be held on Wednesday, July 2nd, and that takes place at 11 a.m. in Brazil. Our third webcast is in Russian, and the topic is going to be Next Generation Wireless Controller, Wireless Access, and Web AUTH. This webcast will be held on Tuesday, July 8th at 12 p.m., and that's Moscow time. We also have some current Ask the Expert events going on in the community. The first one is on IPsec and Secure Socket Layer VPN technologies. Second one is on Introduction to Cisco iOS XR software, and those discussions end on July 3rd. If you haven't already logged into the Cisco Support Community recently, we encourage you to do so. We have a brand new look and feel, and this is a responsive design, so you no longer need to download a mobile app to access it. This is good on all devices, so you can log in and start sharing today. And, of course, be sure to join the Cisco Support Community, where you can share current real-world technical support knowledge with your peers and experts. Also, be sure to check out the Class of 2014 Event Top Contributors and Spotlight Awards on the Cisco Support Community. If you're interested in conducting an event for us and becoming a top event contributor yourself, you can go to the Experts Bureau and sign up, and that's on the community. Our presence in social media keeps expanding, so we encourage you to visit the community and join us through these channels. And we also just recently launched an Instagram site, so you can join us on there as well. And as you saw from the upcoming webcasts in different languages, we continue to expand our reach in many different languages. We have also recently launched our Chinese community, so please be sure to stop by and browse through if you speak Chinese or any of those languages. And now the answer, actually, we're going to have that coming up next. So let's rate your support community content. So all our experts post answers to questions, so they appreciate you rating the quality of their answers. And now the trivia question. What does a fast-talking auctioneer and Cisco Cloud Web Security share in common? The answer was B. Ritchie Brothers Auctioneer Company uses Cisco Cloud Web Security to ensure a smooth and safe online bidding process for their bidders. Before signing off, please take a few minutes to complete your evaluation of today's session. This will help us address your business needs and interest in the future. And this concludes our session today. I want to thank our expert, Maite Cadenas, for sharing her expertise with us today. Also want to thank our experts behind the scenes there, Jennifer Halen, Kareli Sankar, and Johnny Noble, for answering your technical questions. And I want to thank all of you for attending, and have a wonderful day.